While I was recuperating in a Toronto hospital, battling the lingering effects of a severe illness, my husband Marcus was systematically draining our life savings. $92,000 vanished from our joint accounts over a frantic 3-day period. Jeez. Too weak and focused on recovery to notice anything for months, I overheard him, Marcus male, 58. With distinguished gray at the temples and his short, neatly combed dark hair, someone on a hushed call from the hospital waiting room. His voice, usually so comforting, now held a chillingly detached quality. Just 3 days later, as I sat in my hospital room, still feeling the fatigue deep in my bones, my personal financial advisor, Miss Albright, female, 70s, with silver hair, impeccably styled, handed me the damning bank statements. A cold, hard smile touched my lips. Without a word, Anya, female, 65, with silver-streaked dark brown hair, often in an elegant bun, quietly initiated the liquidation of a secure backup account in Zurich, a financial safeguard my grandfather had established years ago, unbeknownst to anyone, especially Marcus. I then watched, with a quiet satisfaction that bordered on grim amusement, as his meticulously crafted new life with my former business partner, Seraphina female, 48, with perfectly styled shoulder-length blonde hair, crumbled before it could even begin. My recovery had been arduous, a relentless battle against a persistent infection that had left me profoundly weakened. Each day, a struggle for even the simplest tasks. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. The soft ping of my phone from the hospital bedside table broke my weary focus. It was probably just another well-wishing message from a friend, as news of my prolonged recovery had spread through our social circle. My doctor had initially estimated a 2-week hospital stay, but complications had extended it considerably. Just like Marcus's apparent plans, Anya, thought, a bitter taste in my mouth. "Anya, honey, try to rest," the nurse gently reminded me as I reached for the device, a bank notification. Odd timing. A $7,000 transfer from our joint savings to Marcus's personal account. My mind, despite the lingering haze of medication, immediately flagged it. That wasn't our agreement. We'd meticulously planned our finances, and all significant expenses were to be discussed and approved. Before I could dwell on it, a wave of nausea washed over me, a common side effect of my medication, making the world spin. By the time it subsided, Marcus male, 58, had returned from his urgent errands, slipping his phone into his pocket with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Everything okay?"
I managed to ask.
My voice raspy. "Just finalizing some work stuff, love, since I'll be taking some time off to be with you during your recovery," he replied, squeezing my hand with just enough pressure to seem supportive. "Nothing for you to worry about now." As the next several days blurred into a haze of 4 drips, medication schedules, and the slow, agonizing process of regaining my strength, that small financial anomaly was pushed to the back of my mind. The first true warning came a few mornings later. Clara, female, 60s, with short, curly auburn hair, my childhood best friend, and still my closest confidant despite living in another province, FaceTimed unexpectedly. "How's my favorite patient?" she began, her smile warm, but her eyes held a hint of concern. "On the mend," Anya, female, 65, replied, trying to sound more confident than I felt. Claire's expression shifted. "Anya, is Marcus there with you?" "No, he went home to shower and grab some things." "Why?" She hesitated, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear, a nervous habit she'd had since we were kids. "I'm probably overreacting, but Seraphina Reynolds, female, 48, just posted something strange on Instagram. A check-in at Pearson International Airport with the caption, 'New beginnings with my soul's true partner,' and there was a man's hand in the photo. Seraphina, my former business partner, who Marcus had worked closely with on several projects over the last year. Clara, there are millions of men in Toronto. Why would that have anything to do with?" The man was wearing Marcus's male, 58 distinctive watch, the vintage Patek Philippe his grandfather had left him. The hospital room seemed to tilt slightly. That can't be right. Rakusa's just at home preparing for me to come back tomorrow. What? The logical part of my brain, Anya's, started making excuses. Maybe it was an old photo, or maybe someone else had a similar watch. Anya, I'm so sorry, but I don't think it's a coincidence. Call him right now, please. Anya, female, 65, hung up and immediately dialed Marcus's number with trembling fingers, the movement pulling at my foreline. The call went straight to voicemail. I tried again with the same result, then sent a text. Miss you, when are you coming back? The 3 dots appeared, disappeared, then appeared again. Finally taking care of some important things. Back tomorrow. Get some rest. Here's something cold settled in my chest, a feeling I recognized from years. A financial auditing. The moment when numbers don't add up. When something is deliberately hidden. I opened my banking app, ignoring the nurse's earlier advice to avoid screens and stress. What I saw stopped my breath more effectively than any physical discomfort. Our joint savings account, $92,000 we'd built over years of careful planning, showed a balance of $1,897. Our checking account was down to $612. A series of large transfers had emptied nearly everything into Marcus's mail. 58 personal account, which was no longer visible to me. All transactions had occurred during my most critical period of recovery. Is everything okay, Miss Sharma? Asked Nurse Patel, female, 40s, with light brown hair and a neat ponytail, entering with my pain medication. Anya locked my phone. Screen, a strange calm settling over me. Nurse Patel, could you do me a favor? I need to speak with my financial advisor, Miss Albright, as soon as possible. There's been an unexpected development. Nurse Patel's eyes widened slightly, but her professional demeanor didn't waver. Of course. Would you like me to bring you the hospital phone? Your cell reception isn't great in this wing, please. And Nurse Patel, I added as she turned to leave, let's keep this between us for now. After she left, I looked out the window at the bustling Toronto skyline, its lights a blur through my tear-filled eyes. The fury rising within me was unlike anything I'd ever experienced, cold, precise, and absolute. Marcus might have taken our savings, but he had no idea what resources I actually had at my disposal. The truth was, the successful financial analyst he'd met 5 years ago at a charity gala wasn't. Just a moderately successful professional making a comfortable living. I, Anya female, 65, was the granddaughter of Arthur Sterling, who had built Sterling Global Investments from nothing into one of the most exclusive wealth management firms in North America. My grandfather had insisted I make my own way in the world, proving myself on merit before anyone knew of my connection to him. The modest inheritance Marcus knew about the down payment for our condo was merely a tiny fraction of my actual family assets. What Marcus Smale, 58, didn't know. What no one knew, except my grandfather. Myself and Ms. Albright, female, 70s, was that on my 60th birthday. Just 5 years ago, I had gained full control of a trust worth approximately $22.5 million, held securely in Zurich. A trust I had kept secret, not out of deception, but because grandfather had insisted I first find someone who loved me for myself, not my potential wealth. It seemed I had failed that test spectacularly, as the city lights twinkled outside. I, Anya, made a silent promise to myself. Marcus's betrayal would not define my life. He thought he was escaping with everything we had. He had no idea what was coming. The hospital room felt smaller the next morning. Fluorescent lights cast a harsh, unforgiving glow over everything, highlighting the sterile reality of my situation. My body ached in ways I'd never imagined possible. The persistent fever had left me Anya female, 65, weak and disoriented. The physical pain, however, was nothing compared to the hollow feeling spreading through my chest. Marcus Male, 58, still hadn't returned. His last text, sent at 3 a.m., simply read, "Need more time. Don't worry about the accounts. I'll explain everything soon." I'd spent most of the night cycling between bouts of quiet tears and staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment of our relationship through this new, terrible lens. Had there been signs? The late nights at work that had increased over the past year? The client conferences that suddenly required his attendance in distant cities? his insistence that I reduce my hours at my consulting firm and take on more freelance clients from home to focus on our future. "Good morning, Miss Sharma," Nurse Patel, female 40s, said, entering with quiet efficiency. Her expression softened when she saw my red-rimmed eyes. "Rough night?" Anya attempted a smile. "Just recovery stuff." She checked my vitals with practiced movements. "Your financial advisor called the nurses' station. She'll be here at 10 o'clock. Thank you." Anya shifted uncomfortably. "Nurse Patel, could you help?" "Me shower before she arrives. I need to feel more like myself." 40 minutes later, wearing the only clean clothes Marcus had packed in my hospital, bag-loose joggers and an oversized sweater that swallowed my still frail frame, Anya, female, 65, sat in a proper chair rather than the bed. Small victories. The simple act of washing my silver-streaked dark brown hair and brushing my teeth had restored some semblance of control, however illusory. When Ms. Albright, female, 70s, arrived, her imposing figure filling the doorway, I felt the first genuine relief since seeing those bank notifications. Ms. Albright had been my grandfather's attorney for 25 years, had watched me grow up. Her silver hair and perpetually serious expression belied a fierce loyalty to the Sterling family. "Anya," she said, setting her briefcase down and taking my hands in hers, her eyes filled with concern. "Your grandfather would have been so proud of the woman you've become." Tears threatened again at the mention of grandfather, who had passed away just 8 months earlier. "He arranged for everything else, though, didn't he?" Miss Albright's voice held a note of grim satisfaction. "I received your message." As Anya detailed Marcus's disappearance and the emptied accounts, Ms. Albright's expression darkened. She took methodical notes, occasionally asking clarifying questions about timelines and specific amounts. When I mentioned Seraphina Reynolds' female, 48 Instagram post, her eyebrow raised slightly. "Seraphina Reynolds? Your former business partner at Sterling Global?" I nodded. "And my friend, or so I thought." "I see." She made another note. "And Marcus Male, 58, has no knowledge of the Zurich Trust?" "None," grandfather insisted, and I agreed. "We wanted to be sure." My voice caught. "Well, I guess grandfather was right to be cautious." "Indeed," Ms. Albright's expression softened momentarily. "Anya, I don't mean to add to your burden, but there's something else you should know. I received notification this morning of inquiries into your credit. Someone, presumably Marcus, has attempted to open several credit lines in your name." The room seemed to tilt. "He's trying to steal my identity." "It appears so. Fortunately, the additional security measures we implemented when the trust activated have flagged these attempts. Nothing has been approved." Ms. Albright tapped her pen against her notepad. "However, it demonstrates a level of premeditation that concerns me." The implication hung in the air. This wasn't an impulsive decision made by a husband, terrified of a spouse's prolonged illness. Marcus Male, 58, had planned this, perhaps for months. "The condo," Anya said suddenly. "Is he trying to sell our condo too?" "The 2-bedroom unit we'd purchased 3 years ago. It's meticulously renovated with dreams of building a life together." Ms. Albright made a call, speaking in low tones while I tried to process this new betrayal. After hanging up, she confirmed my fears. "He listed it yesterday with a boutique real estate agency. As it's in both your names, he can't complete a sale without your signature. But he knows a realtor who might not look too closely at paperwork." I finished. Marcus's former university roommate, Derek Male, 50s, with thinning brown hair, worked in real estate. Loyalty ran strong in Marcus's circle, just not apparently to me. "What do Anya, female, 65, do now?" I asked, my voice steadier than I felt. The weight of my current vulnerability crystallized something. This wasn't just about Marcus's Male, 58 betrayal or my wounded pride. My future security was at stake. Ms. Albright, female, 70s, slid a folder across the rolling hospital table. "First, we need to protect what's yours. I prepared temporary freezes for your credit and financial accounts. We'll need to act quickly regarding the condo. I recommend an injunction preventing any sale or transfer of property." And then we go after him, I finished, a cold clarity settling over me. Ms. Albright nodded, a hint of the predatory lawyer visible beneath her stern exterior. He doesn't know what resources you actually have at your disposal. That's our advantage. He took our savings, thinking it was everything, I said. He has no idea. No, he doesn't. Miss Albright began organizing papers for me to sign. Now, by the time he finds out, it will be too late for him to counter. A soft knock interrupted us. Dr. Chen, female 50s, with short, dark, practical hair entered, clipboard in hand, her expression professionally neutral. Ms. Sharma, I'm here to check your vitals, and I need to discuss your discharge plans. You were scheduled to leave tomorrow, but given your progress, we may need to reconsider. Do you have support at home? The question hung in the air. The reality of my situation suddenly stark. I was still recovering from a serious illness, with a husband who had abandoned me, the carefully prepared apartment, the meals I'd stocked in the freezer, all assumed Marcus's presence and support. I, Anya, for the first time since discovering Marcus's betrayal, faltered. Where would I go? How would I manage alone? Ms. Albright placed a steadying hand on my shoulder. Actor Chen Ms. Sharma will not be returning to her current residence. I've made arrangements at the Sterling family estate. Full-time nursing support is already being organized.
Dr. Chen's expression cleared.
That sounds appropriate. I'll update the discharge plan, she paused. And Ms. Sharma, I'm very sorry about your situation. She examined me. I exchanged a look with Ms. Albright. The Sterling estate. My grandfather's sprawling property that had been sitting vacant since his death, awaiting my decision about its future. I hadn't been ready to return there, too full of memories and grief. Now it would become my sanctuary. 3 days after my hospital discharge, Anya, female, 65, with silver-streaked dark brown hair, was wheeled out of the hospital's side. Entrance, away from the usual discharge area. Miss Albright, female. 70s had arranged this discretion after we'd discovered a disturbing voicemail on my phone that, Morning, Marcus male. 58, slurring his words slightly. Demanding to know when I'd be vacating our condos so he could get it ready for market. The June sunshine felt surreal against my skin after days under fluorescent lights. A sleek black SUV with tinted windows waited at the curb, the driver already loading my meager belongings. Miss Sharma? A woman stepped forward from beside the vehicle. She was perhaps in her 70s, with pristine white hair pulled into a neat bun and keen eyes that missed nothing. She wore a simple navy pantsuit and carried herself with quiet authority. I'm Beatrice Monroe. Your grandfather called me his right hand for 20 years. Ms. Albright asked me to assist you during this transition. I vaguely remembered her from childhood visits to grandfather's office, the efficient executive assistant who had always had butterscotch candies in her desk for me. You worked with my grandfather, I said. Until the day he died, a flash of grief crossed her face before her professional demeanor returned. And now I work for you, if you'll have me. The Sterling Trust includes provisions for my continued employment managing the estate and family affairs. Before I could respond, Beatrice immediately stepped forward, her hands confident as she adjusted the seatbelt in the SUV with practiced ease. You have children? I asked, surprised. 2, now grown, and 3 grandchildren. A genuine smile softened her features. Arthur, your grandfather, was godfather to my oldest. He made sure I could work and raise my family without compromise, not common in the financial world 20 years ago. Something about Beatrice is straightforward. Competence cut through my fog of pain and uncertainty. When she helped me into the SUV, securing my small bag with efficient movements, I felt the first stirring of hope since discovering Marcus's betrayal. The drive to the Sterling estate took 40 minutes, leaving the city behind for the wooded privacy of Oak Ridge Hills. As we turned onto the long, tree-lined drive, childhood memories flooded back, summers playing in the sprawling gardens, grandfather teaching me to swim in the indoor pool, holiday dinners in the formal dining room. Where I'd first announced my engagement to Marcus male, 58, I pushed that particular memory away. I've prepared the east wing for you, Beatrice female, 70 said as the house came into view. It's the morning sun, and I thought you might appreciate that. The Sterling estate wasn't a mansion, and the showy Sen's grandfather had despised ostentation, but it was substantial. A 5-bedroom Georgian-style home seamlessly integrated into the 7-acre wooded lot. The natural materials and abundant windows made it feel like part of the landscape rather than imposed upon it. "The nursing support Ms. Albright mentioned?" I asked as the driver parked near a side entrance. "Registered nurse during the day, nurse's assistant overnight. Both with extensive recovery experience and impeccable references." Beatrice checked something on her tablet. "The day nurse, Eliza, female, 40s, with brown hair and a practical ponytail, starts tomorrow. I'll be here tonight to help."
You don't have to.
"I want to." Beatrice's tone brooked no argument. "Your grandfather did more for my family than I could ever repay. Helping his granddaughter is the least I can do." Inside, the house had been subtly transformed. The formal sitting room now held a comfortable chaise lounge near a sun-drenched window. A small table with a selection of herbal teas and fresh fruit stood where an antique globe had been. "You did all this in 3 days?" Anya, female, 65, marveled, carefully settling onto the chaise as my still recovering body protested. "Arthur always said to be prepared for every contingency." Beatrice, female, 70s, handed me a cup of calming chamomile tea. "After you told him about your prolonged illness, he asked me to prepare for various scenarios, including one where you might need to return here." I looked up sharply. He suspected Marcus, male, 58. Beatrice measured her words carefully. "Your grandfather was an excellent judge of character. He had reservations about your husband's intentions, but he respected your choice and hoped he was wrong." As I processed this, Beatrice continued her tour, pointing out the refrigerator stocked with prepared meals, the comfortable reading nook, the intercom system installed in each room. She thought of everything. "There's something else you should see," she said after I'd settled and finished my tea. She led me to grandfather's study, a room that had always been his sanctuary. The heavy oak door opened to reveal the space largely unchanged, leather-bound books lining the walls, the faint scent of pipe tobacco still lingering despite his having quit years before his death. On the massive desk sat a sealed envelope with my name written in grandfather's distinctive script. "He left specific instructions," Beatrice explained. "This was to be given to you when she needs to remember who she is. I believe that time is now." With trembling fingers, I broke the seal. Inside was a single page of grandfather's personal stationery and a small ornate key. "My dearest Anya, if you're reading this, I am gone, and you are facing difficulties I had hoped would never come to pass. First know this: you are a Sterling. Before you were ever a Sharma, Sterlings are not defined by their challenges, but by their response to them. You have always possessed a quiet strength that reminds me of your grandmother. Like her, you see the best in people, beautiful quality that occasionally blinds you to those who would take advantage of your generous heart. Whatever has brought you back to the estate, remember that this is your legacy, not just in material terms, but in character and resilience." The Sterling fortune was built not on lucky gambles, but on careful observation, strategic patience, and the courage to act decisively when the moment demands. The enclosed key opens the safe behind the painting of Lake Louise. Inside, you'll find everything you need to reclaim what is rightfully yours and protect what matters most. All my love. Grandfather. P.S. Beatrice knows everything. Trust her as I did. I, Anya, female, 65, with silver-streaked dark brown hair. Looked up from the letter to find Beatrice, female, 70s, watching me with a knowing expression. "The safe?" I asked. She moved to the majestic landscape painting, a scene from our family's Banff property, and swung it away from the wall and hidden hinges, revealing a sophisticated wall safe. I inserted the key, then entered my berth. Date at Beatrice's prompt. The heavy door swung open. Inside lay several folders, a portable hard drive, and a small, leather-bound journal. Beatrice handed me the top folder. "Your grandfather began collecting this information 2 years ago when Marcus, male, 58, first suggested combining your financial accounts." I opened it to find meticulous documentation of Marcus's personal financial history, credit reports, bank statements, tax returns dating back 5 years before I'd met him. The second folder contained surveillance reports and photographs. He had Marcus investigated, I asked, shock mingling with a strange vindication. Arthur Sterling didn't believe in leaving things to chance, Beatrice said simply, especially when it came to family. As I flipped through the pages, patterns emerged that I'd been too blinded by love to see. Marcus's periodic financial windfalls that he'd attributed to successful investments. The women whose names appeared repeatedly in expense reports, though gambling debts carefully hidden, then mysteriously paid off. He's done this before, I realized, the truth crystallizing with horrible clarity. Beatrice nodded grimly. 3. Times that we could confirm. Wealthy women, whirlwind romances followed by mysterious financial troubles that required liquidating assets. The final page of the file contained a name that made my blood run cold. Seraphina Reynolds, suspected. Accomplice. My business partner, I whispered. Your husband's partner in more ways than one, Beatrice corrected gently. They've been working together for years, targeting women with significant assets, your grandfather discovered there. Connection about 7 months before he died? Why didn't he tell me? He tried in his way. Remember when he suggested you keep the trust confidential until the time was right? Beatrice's expression held no judgment. He believed forcing you to choose would only push you further into Marcus's influence. I closed the folder, a cold resolve settling over me. Grandfather was preparing me for this moment? Yes, Beatrice agreed. And now he's given you everything you need to fight back? Sleep eluded me, Anya female, 65 that night. Despite my exhaustion, between processing the revelations from my grandfather's safe and the lingering effects of my illness, my mind raced with questions. How had I missed the signs? How deeply did Marcus's male, 58 deception run? By morning, Beatrice female, 70s, found me in grandfather's study, the contents of his files spread across the massive desk. I'd been up since 4 a.m., poring over the evidence with the analytical precision that had made me successful in my career. You should rest, Beatrice said, setting down a tray with tea and toast. I'll rest when my future is secure. I gestured to my organized stacks of documents. Marcus's pattern is clear. He targets financially comfortable women, preferably those with greater wealth potential. Inheritances, family connections, or career trajectories that promise future affluence. Beatrice nodded, filling my teacup. Your grandfather called it investing in futures. Seraphina female, 48, was instrumental in every case, I continued. She befriends the target first, gathering information about their finances, family dynamics, vulnerabilities. Then she introduces Marcus at a carefully orchestrated chance meeting. The betrayal of friendship cut almost deeper than Marcus's deception. Seraphina had been my confidant for 4 years before introducing me to Marcus at a professional networking event. She'd even helped me plan my 60th birthday celebration, all while helping Marcus plan to take everything I had. The timing makes sense now, I said, tapping a particular bank statement. 7 months ago, when grandfather's health declined severely, there was a flurry of activity in Marcus's private account. He must have realized the inheritance would be coming soon. A soft chime interrupted us, the house's security system, announcing an arrival. Beatrice checked her tablet. That's Eliza female, 40s, with brown hair and a practical ponytail, the day nurse. Before you go, I said, there's something else. I slid across a document I'd found. In the deepest folder, according to this, Marcus has another identity, Julian Croft. He's used it for previous projects. Beatrice's expression remained neutral, but her eyes hardened. Yes, your grandfather discovered it during the background investigation. And a third identity too, it seems, Paul Harrison. I tapped another page. The real estate holdings under this name, paid for with money from his previous victims. I'm guessing include a lakeside cabin in Muskoka and a condo in Vancouver. You've been thorough, Beatrice observed. An analyst. Patterns are what I do. I gather the papers into a neat stack. I need to see everything else. Credit card statements, phone records, email accounts. I need to know exactly how much he's taken from me and from others. Preparing and Narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. After Elisa, female 40s, was settled with me, Beatrice, female 70s, returned with her laptop and a secure phone. These are clean devices, she explained. We have to assume Marcus, male 58, has access to your regular accounts, possibly with tracking software. For the next 3 hours, we methodically pieced together Marcus's activities over the past year. The picture that emerged was both infuriating and grimly validating. After gaining access to my regular banking passwords, likely from the family, emergency contact information I'd provided during a particularly busy period at work, Marcus had been systematically siphoning small amounts from my personal accounts for months. He was testing boundaries, Anya, female 65, noted. Taking enough to build his escape fund, but not enough to trigger my attention. The real escalation began when my illness was confirmed. Credit card statements showed purchases at high-end jewelers and restaurants, gifts and meals not for me, but for Seraphina, female 48. Hidden under vague business expense descriptions. Hotel charges in cities where Marcus claimed to be attending conferences, always with an extra business dinner charge that matched Seraphina's favorite champagne. There's a pattern to their movements, I observed, marking locations on a digital map. They've been preparing for this, establishing a new base somewhere. Beatrice zoomed in on repeated charges in Scottsdale, Arizona. This matches the property records for Paul Harrison. My phone, my regular one, buzzed with an incoming call. Marcus's name flashed on the screen. Should I answer? Asked Beatrice, suddenly uncertain. Yes, on speaker. Remember, he doesn't know what you know. I took a deep breath and answered, my voice deliberately weak. Marcus. Anya, love. His voice held the perfect blend of concern and distraction. How are you feeling? How's the recovery? I'm managing, Anya said, fighting to keep my tone neutral. The nurses at the hospital have been helpful. When are you coming back? A pause. That's why I'm calling. There's been a situation with the Windsor account. The Singapore office needs me to fly out immediately. The Windsor account, a convenient fiction. I'd checked this morning. Marcus's firm had no client by that name. Singapore. But I'm still recovering. I infused my voice with a tremor. I need you here, Marcus. Can't do this alone. I know, honey, and I'm sorry, but this is a career-making opportunity. We're talking a 7-figure commission. His voice lowered to a conspiratorial tone. This could set us up for years, Anya. Think about our retirement fund. Retirement fund. As if he hadn't just emptied our savings account. The money from our joint accounts, Anya said carefully, was that for your flight? Another pause, longer this time. What? Oh, that, yes, partly. And I've been setting up some investments I've been researching. With your recovery, we need to be more aggressive with our portfolio. I was going to surprise you when it all went through. Beatrice raised an eyebrow at the audacity of the lie. When will you be back? I pressed. 2 weeks tops. Listen, I've got to run. Boarding soon. Love you. Call ended before I could respond. He's buying time, Beatrice said, likely emptying any remaining accounts and covering his tracks. Singapore, I repeated, turning back to the map. Not Arizona. A false trail, Beatrice agreed. Check the credit card for international charges. Sure enough, Marcus's corporate card showed a first-class ticket to Singapore, departing tomorrow. Not today, as he'd implied. A diversionary tactic while he finalized his actual plans. There's something else. Anya, female 65, said, pulling up the home security app on my tablet. Another of grandfather's precautions. When I'd moved into Marcus's male 58 condo after marriage, he'd insisted on installing a state-of-the-art security system as a wedding gift. What I hadn't realized until reading his files was that the system included discrete cameras in common areas. I entered my access code and flipped through recent footage. There, in our living room, just yesterday, Marcus and Seraphina, female 48, packing items into expensive luggage. Marcus moved methodically through the condo, selecting valuables, the antique silver from my family, the art pieces we'd collected. Even the diamond earrings he'd given me for our anniversary, retrieved from my jewelry box, He's liquidating everything, I murmured. But it was the next clip that froze my blood. Marcus at my desk, going through my personal papers, pulling out the single document I'd kept about the Zurich trust, a vague reference letter from Ms. Albright, female, 70s, about family assets under management that I'd saved for tax purposes. Marcus's expression changed as he read, a slow smile spreading across his face. He pulled out his phone and took photos of the document before carefully returning it to its place. He knows, I whispered, or at least he suspects. This changes our timeline, Beatrice, female, 70, said briskly. If he's aware of the trust, even partially, he'll accelerate his plans. The security footage continued. Marcus and Seraphina embracing in my kitchen, laughing as he twirled her around. To us, he said, his voice slightly tinny, through the security system audio, into the stupid little analyst who's about to fund our early retirement. The rage that swept through me, Anya, was like nothing I'd ever experienced, cold, clarifying, and absolute. The evidence before me wasn't just of financial fraud, but of calculated emotional manipulation. The deliberate exploitation of trust given in good faith. I watched them drink my champagne in my kitchen while planning their escape with my money, mocking the life I'd built. He thinks I'm still the naive woman who believed his lies, Anya said, my voice steady, despite the anger burning through me. He has no idea who he's actually dealing with. Beatrice's smile held no warmth, and perhaps it's time to show him. By afternoon, Miss Albright, female, 70s, arrived with Dr. Sharma, female, 50s, with short, dark, practical hair, a distinguished internal medicine specialist who focused on post-recovery care. As Eliza, female, 40s, supervised my rest in the bedroom, Anya, female, 65, with silver-streaked dark brown hair, submitted to Dr. Sharma's examination in the privacy of the main suite. Your recovery is progressing properly, she concluded, removing her gloves. But you're pushing yourself too hard, too soon. Your body has undergone significant trauma. Ms. Albright, who had diplomatically waited in the adjoining sitting room, rejoined us as I readjusted my clothing.
What are the specific limitations?
She asked. Legal pad ready. Dr. Sharma looked between us, her expression concerned. Miss Sharma needs at least 2 more weeks of minimal physical activity. No heavy lifting, no driving for another week, limited stairs, and most importantly, proper rest. Anya waved away her concerns. I have help here. My priority. Your priority must be recovery, Dr. Sharma interrupted firmly. Stress impedes healing and can affect your overall well-being. Whatever situation you're facing, you won't be able to handle it effectively if you collapse from exhaustion or develop complications. Miss Albright made careful notes. And cognitively. Hormonal fluctuations, sleep deprivation, how will these affect decision-making? I threw her a betrayed look, but Dr. Sharma nodded approvingly at the question. Post-stillness cognitive function can be impaired, particularly with the added stress Ms. Sharma is experiencing. Reduced attention span, memory lapses, and emotional volatility are common. I would recommend against making major financial or legal decisions without consulting trusted advisors. I'm perfectly capable, I began. Of course you are, Dr. Sharma said, her tone gentler. But even Olympic athletes need recovery time after performance. Your body has just completed a marathon. After providing detailed care, instructions, and scheduling a follow-up visit, Dr. Sharma departed, leaving Ms. Albright and me alone in the sitting room. I know you're frustrated, she said before I could speak, but we need to be realistic about your current limitations. Marcus, male, 58, has mobility, energy, and single-minded focus. You're recovering from a serious illness. That's exactly why I can't afford to wait, Anya countered, shifting uncomfortably as a dull ache throbbed. Every day gives him more opportunity to disappear with my money. Our money, Miss Albright corrected gently. Zurich Trust remains untouched and secure. What Marcus has taken, while substantial to most people, is a fraction of your actual assets. It's not about the amount, I insisted. It's about justice, about consequences. Ms. Albright's expression softened. I understand. But you need to consider the full landscape. She opened her briefcase and withdrew several folders. I've compiled reports on our current position. You should review them before we determine next steps. The first folder contained a precise accounting of my financial status. The joint account's now empty. My personal account's significantly depleted. Credit cards approaching their limits with charges I hadn't made. The condo in pre-listing status. With Derek's Mail, 50's real estate agency, the credit card companies have been notified of fraud, Ms. Albright assured me. Those charges will be reversed, and I filed an emergency injunction on the condo. Marcus cannot legally sell it without your consent. The second folder held a preliminary assessment of my physical assets. Jewelry missing from the safe deposit box. Art and antiques removed from the condo as confirmed by the security footage. Even my car, which Marcus had apparently traded in. Yesterday at a luxury dealership 2 counties over. He's been thorough, I noted. A hollow feeling spreading through my chest. Yes, which suggests professional planning, not impulsive action. Ms. Albright tapped the third folder. This contains what we know about Marcus's current status and limitations. I flipped it open to find surveillance photos taken. Just hours earlier, Marcus male, 58. At a private airfield overseeing the loading of luggage into a small jet, Seraphina, female, 48 by his side, her arm possessively linked through his. The timestamp showed 10:17 a.m., contradicting his claim of being en route to Singapore. Where was this taken? I asked. Buttonville Airport. Our investigator reports the flight plan was filed for Scottsdale. They landed approximately 1 hour ago. The Arizona connection confirmed. What about the Singapore ticket? Never boarded. It was a diversion, as you suspected. I studied the remaining pages. Property records for the Scottsdale address held under the pall. Harrison identity, utility activations, recent deliveries of high-end furniture and electronics. He's setting up their new life, I murmured. Using my money to create a luxury nest. Yes, but his haste creates vulnerabilities. Ms. Albright indicated several highlighted sections. The Scottsdale property was purchased only 4 months ago. The title transfer shows irregularities that could be contested. And most significantly, he's using finances and identities we can track. The implications were both encouraging and sobering. Marcus had prepared his escape, but not as thoroughly as he believed. He had resources and mobility that I currently lacked, but his confidence might lead to mistakes. What about the Zurich trust? I asked. How vulnerable is it given what he knows? Ms. Albright shook her head. The trust is structured, with multiple layers of protection. Even with the information from that letter, he cannot access the principal. At most, he might attempt to manipulate you into making transfers once he believes you have control, which I already do. I pointed out. Yes, but he doesn't know that. Ms. Albright's expression was grave. Your greatest vulnerability isn't financial, Anya. It's your prolonged recovery. He assumes you were incapacitated, unable to respond effectively. The thought of Marcus exploiting my fragile health made my blood run cold. So I'm stuck here, recovering while he liquidates my assets and establishes his new identity, potentially preparing to disappear completely. The unfairness of it burned. Not exactly. Ms. Albright closed the folders with methodical precision. You have limitations, yes, but you also have resources Marcus cannot imagine. On cue, Beatrice female, 70s entered, with a secure tablet. Dr. Sharma has left. Liza reports, you'll likely rest for another hour. She noted my frustrated expression. I see Ms. Albright has covered our current challenges. Anya needs to understand what she's facing, Ms. Albright said unapologetically. And what I can't do, Anya added bitterly. Beatrice set the tablet before me. Perhaps it's time to focus on what you can do.
The screen
Displayed a secure messaging system I recognize from my work with financial clients. Sterling Global's proprietary communications platform. Your grandfather maintained relationships with financial institutions worldwide, Beatrice explained. Banking houses, investment firms, regulatory agencies, people who owe the Sterling name favors or professional courtesies. People who can move more quickly than legal channels, Ms. Albright added, while respecting legal boundaries, of course. I looked between them, understanding, dawning. You're suggesting we use grandfather's network to track and intercept Marcus's activities? Among other things, Beatrice confirmed. Your limitations are real, Anya. You need physical recovery and time for yourself. But your mind is sharp, and your financial expertise is intact. And you have us, Ms. Albright added. Along with resources Marcus doesn't know exist. I thought of grandfather's letter. The sterling fortune was built not on lucky gambles, but on careful observation, strategic patience, and the courage to act decisively when the moment demands. I need a complete picture, I decided. Every account Marcus might access, every alias he's used, every connection to their previous victims. And I need to understand exactly what legal actions are available to me, Ms. Albright nodded. Approvingly, I've already begun compiling the legal options. We can move on multiple fronts simultaneously. And I'll coordinate with Eliza to ensure your physical needs are met, Beatrice added. Your recovery is not a limitation. It's a priority that enables everything else. For the first time since discovering Marcus's betrayal, Anya felt the fog of helplessness lifting. Yes, I was physically constrained. My energy was divided between healing and this operation. But my mind was clear, my determination unshaken, and my resources far greater than Marcus could possibly imagine. I might be temporarily limited. I was far from powerless. The midnight storm rattled the estate's windows, mirroring the tempest. Within me, Anya female, 65. As I lay in bed, fragments of memory began surfacing, moments that had seemed insignificant but now revealed themselves as critical puzzle pieces. Marcus's male, 58 brother, I said suddenly, as Beatrice, female 70s, entered with a cup of herbal tea. She'd insisted on helping with the night, claiming insomnia, but revealing her dedication. Daniel male, 50s, with short dark hair, she asked, setting down the tea within my reach. Yes, the call Marcus made from the hospital when I was admitted. He was talking to Daniel about the money transfers. I shifted, wincing slightly. Daniel's involved somehow. Beatrice made a note on her ever-present tablet. Your grandfather's files mentioned Marcus's brother as a person of interest, but we couldn't establish direct involvement. There was something else in that call, I continued, closing my eyes to better recall the overheard conversation. Marcus mentioned the Vancouver property being ready. I assumed he meant a business investment, but now. Another safe house, Beatrice concluded. We'll investigate properties in Vancouver connected to either brother or their known aliases. As I drifted back towards rest, another memory surfaced. The prenuptial agreement. The prenuptial agreement, I said, the realization striking like the lightning outside. The lawyer who drafted it, Mr. Thorne male, 60s, with graying temples and a thin comb-over, was recommended by Seraphina female, 48, not my usual firm. She said he specialized in protecting women's assets. Beatrice's eyes narrowed. That's significant. I need to see that agreement again. Thorne insisted on certain clauses that seemed beneficial to me at the time: separate property protections, financial disclosure requirements, but what if they were designed to create specific vulnerabilities? Albright. Female 70s, obtain a copy first thing tomorrow, Beatrice promised. Thunder crashed outside and a connection clicked into place. The charity gala where I met Marcus was for environmental initiatives, but Marcus has never shown interest in environmental causes since then. He even complained about our donations to similar causes. Outcalculated entry point, Beatrice suggested. He studied your giving patterns. Yes, but that's not what bothers me. Anya frowned, trying to articulate the emerging pattern. Marcus cultivated specific friendships after we married people with connections to financial institutions, state planning, even my personal banker. I thought he was just being supportive of my career. He was mapping your financial landscape, Beatrice said, and isolating me from my original network. I added, I stopped attending industry events because Marcus always had alternative engagements planned. My regular lunches with colleagues gradually disappeared from my calendar. Classic manipulation tactics. How had I missed them? By morning, these midnight insights had crystallized into actionable intelligence. Over breakfast, which Eliza female, 40s insisted, Anya female, 65, with silver-streaked dark brown hair. Eat before diving into work, I outlined my thoughts. 2 Ms. Albright female, 70s, and Beatrice female, 70s. We've been thinking about this as financial fraud, I explained, but it's more sophisticated. Marcus male, 58, didn't just target my visible assets. He systematically positioned himself to access the sterling fortune if and when I inherited. The long game. The prenup, I continued, which I insisted on to protect my modest inheritance from my parents, was actually designed to create a pathway to bigger assets. There's a clause about jointly managed family interests that could be interpreted to include trust distributions. Clever, Ms. Albright admitted. Not legally sound, but enough to initiate costly litigation. And then there's Daniel Mayle, 50s. I passed Ms. Albright the notes I'd made during the night. Marcus's brother is a digital security consultant. Last Christmas, he upgraded our home network as a gift. I gave him administrator access to everything. Beatrice's expression darkened. Including your devices and security systems. Which means, I concluded, we have to assume they still have access to my regular email, banking passwords, and possibly the home security footage. Their surveillance gives us an opportunity, Ms. Albright noted. If they believe they're monitoring your activities successfully, we can feed them specific information. This sparked another realization. Hospital records too. Marcus could access my patient portal with the password he knows. He's likely monitoring my expected discharge date, medical status, everything. So he knows you've been released, Ms. Albright concluded. But not where you've gone, I countered. The Sterling estate isn't in any records linked to my married name. Even the car that brought me here was registered to the family corporation. Beatrice tapped her tablet thoughtfully. We could use the hospital angle, have them update your records to show complications requiring extended recovery, buying us time. I agreed, as if summoned by our discussion of medical matters. Dr. Sharma, female 50s, arrived for my morning checkup. After examining me and checking my vital signs, she delivered an assessment that tied directly to our strategic planning. You're healing well physically, she confirmed, but your blood pressure is elevated not dangerously, but enough to concern me, given your circumstances. Stress, Anya acknowledged. Yes, and it can impede recovery. Speaking, I would recommend minimizing stressors for at least another week. Focus on your well-being and allowing your body to heal. After she left, Miss Albright looked at me expectantly. Does this change our approach? No, I decided, but it clarifies our timeline. I can't afford a prolonged battle right now, not physically or emotionally. We need decisive action that resolves this quickly. Beatrice's tablet chimed with an incoming message. She reviewed it, her expression shifting to one of grim satisfaction. Our financial inquiries have yielded results, she announced. Marcus Mayle, 58, attempted to open accounts at Swiss United Bank this morning, using your joint tax returns as proof of assets. That's standard procedure for establishing banking relationships, I noted. Yes, but he claimed to be representing sterling financial interests. Used your grandfather's company letterhead, presumably from documents in your home office? My grandfather's letterhead, which contained embedded security features. Invisible to the naked eye, but recognized by major financial institutions. Protection against exactly this kind of fraud. So he triggered security protocols, I realized immediately. Beatrice confirmed. The bank contacted Sterling Global directly, following established verification procedures. Our compliance officer recognized the situation from the alert I issued yesterday. What happened? I asked. The bank stalled him, claiming additional documentation requirements. He's scheduled to return tomorrow morning with certified financial statements, a crucial mistake on Marcus's part, tempting to leverage the Sterling name without understanding the safeguards in place. My grandfather had built relationships with banking institutions worldwide, establishing protocols. That would flag unauthorized use of company credentials. This gives us leverage, Ms. Albright noted. Banking fraud carries significant penalties, especially across international boundaries. But I was already seeing beyond the immediate advantage. It's not just leverage, it's a pattern revealing Marcus's larger strategy. I turned to Beatrice. Can we get the exact documents he presented and surveillance footage from the bank? Already requested. And we need to check other financial centers where Sterling Global has relationships. If he tried this at one institution, he's likely approaching multiple banks, Ms. Albright finished, creating a diverse portfolio of fraudulent accounts. This insight unlocked another memory, a conversation I'd overheard between Marcus and Seraphina female. 48 at our Christmas party, thinking they were discussing legitimate investment strategy. Diversification is key. Establish 5 entry points, then funnel through the Caribbean shell before consolidation. Not investment advice instructions for laundering money. The Caribbean shell, I said aloud. They mentioned a structure in the Cayman Islands. If we can identify it, we can potentially freeze all connected accounts, Ms. Albright concluded. As Beatrice made calls to initiate these inquiries, Anya felt a strange calm settling over me. The fragments were aligning, the pattern emerging. With clarity that only my analytical mind could fully appreciate, Marcus and Seraphina had been meticulous in their planning. But they'd made the critical error of underestimating both me and the legacy I carried. They saw only the surface, a woman recovering from illness, emotionally overwhelmed. They didn't recognize the sterling beneath the Sharma. They didn't understand that while my body recovered, my mind was making connections they had never anticipated. Most crucially, they didn't realize that the very network they sought to exploit was already mobilizing against them. Invisible threads of influence and information tightening around their scheme before they even sensed the resistance. We have them, I said softly, the certainty growing with each new insight. They just don't know it yet. By afternoon, the Sterling Estate's former sunroom had transformed into our command center. Ms. Albright, female, 70s, had arranged for a secure data terminal to be installed, connected to Sterling Global's private servers, but isolated from any networks Marcus, male, 58, might monitor. Beatrice, female, 70s, coordinated a steady stream of information from financial institutions and private investigators, while Anya, female, 65, with silver-streaked dark brown hair, directed our efforts from a comfortable chaise lounge. Eliza, female, 40s, sleeping nearby. Documentation is our strongest weapon, Ms. Albright emphasized. Organizing evidence into categories, criminal charges, civil litigation, financial recovery, each requires specific proof. I nodded, reviewing the growing case file. We need to establish clear timelines and patterns of behavior, not just what Marcus took, but how systematically he operated. On the digital whiteboard, we mapped every known action Marcus had taken, from our first meeting to his most recent Swiss bank maneuver. Color-coded threads connected seemingly disparate events into a cohesive strategy. Red for financial transactions, blue for identity creation, and documentation green for relationship manipulation. His pattern becomes clear when visualized, I noted, studying the timeline. Each relationship phase corresponded with specific financial actions. Courtship coincided with information gathering. Engagement with isolation from my support. Network. Marriage with gradual asset integration. And my illness with acceleration toward exit. Beatrice concluded. I turned to the financial documentation, where my professional expertise proved most valuable. Bank statements revealed methodical withdrawals, disguised as legitimate expenses. Credit card records showed purchases supporting his alternate identity's clothing. Never worn in my presence. Traveled to locations he'd never mentioned visiting. He maintained separate digital devices, I realized, noting patterns in our internet billing. Regular data spikes occurred when I was reliably away therapy appointments. Doctor visits. Ms. Albright flagged each discovery for further investigation. Electronic evidence can be particularly compelling in court. By evening, we had constructed 3 distinct but interconnected cases against Marcus. First, criminal charges for fraud, identity theft, and grand larceny, supported by bank records, forged documents, and security footage from our condo. Second, civil claims for financial damages, emotional distress, and breach of fiduciary duty, strengthened by evidence of his deliberate deception throughout our relationship. Third, a comprehensive strategy for financial recovery that would not only reclaim what he'd taken, but potentially seize assets acquired through his previous schemes. What about Seraphina female, 48, and Daniel male, 50s? I asked. They are equally culpable. We're building separate cases. Against each, Ms. Albright confirmed. Conspiracy charges at minimum for Daniel. Also potential fraud related to her professional interactions with you for Seraphina. The documentation process proved unexpectedly therapeutic. Each piece of evidence transformed my personal betrayal into something objective, a case to be pursued rather than a wound to be nursed. The analyst in me found satisfaction in assembling this puzzle, even as the woman in me still reeled from the deception. As we worked, patterns emerged beyond Marcus's male Wusherba actions. Banking alerts from Sterling Global's network identified similar fraud attempts at institutions in Singapore, London, and Toronto, all using variations of my credentials or family connections. He's casting a wide net, Anya, female, 65, observed, hoping something sticks before the fraud is detected. And documenting his attempts gives us leverage with international authorities, Miss Albright added. Financial crimes across multiple jurisdictions elevate the priority level for law enforcement. Beatrice, female, 70s, received confirmation that Swiss United Bank had preserved surveillance footage of Marcus's visit. The images showed him confidently presenting forged documentation. Seraphina, female, 48, waiting outside in a rented luxury car. He's using my grandfather's name, I noted, anger flaring at the falsified Sterling Global letterhead, a name built on decades of integrity. Which gives us another angle, Ms. Albright said. Trademark infringement, corporate identity theft. The business damages exceed personal theft. By nightfall, our evidence compilation had yielded unexpected insights into Marcus's capabilities and limitations. His technical knowledge was primarily borrowed from Daniel Male, 50s. His financial transactions followed predictable patterns. His confidence led him to take shortcuts that created vulnerabilities. Most significantly, he consistently underestimated institutional safeguards, believing his charm and surface-level knowledge sufficient to bypass security measures designed by experts like my grandfather. He's not nearly as clever as he thinks, I concluded, reviewing his clumsy attempts to leverage Sterling Global credentials. His success relies on targeting women during vulnerable periods and exploiting emotional manipulation, on actual financial expertise, which makes your analytical abilities his blind spot, Beatrice observed. As I prepared for the evening rest, I reviewed what we'd assembled, a comprehensive case file that transformed scattered evidence into a compelling narrative of calculated fraud. Each document, statement, and timestamp added weight to our position. Each connection strengthened the foundation for what would come next. We have enough to begin legal proceedings, Miss Albright confirmed, but timing remains critical. I nodded, understanding the delicate balance we faced. Move too quickly with insufficient preparation, and Marcus might vanish with whatever assets we hadn't yet traced. Wait too long, and he could establish new identities beyond our reach. Tomorrow, I decided, we'll make our first move tomorrow. For the first time since discovering Marcus's betrayal, Anya felt the power shifting. No longer just a victim of his scheme, I had become the architect of his reckoning. Dawn broke just as Anya, female, 65, with silver-streaked dark brown hair, finished my morning tea. The symbolism wasn't lost on me. A new day, a new phase. In our strategy, I'd managed a few hours of sleep, more than I'd expected given the weight of what we were undertaking. Ms. Albright, female, 70s, arrived earlier than scheduled, her expression unusually grave. She carried a secure tablet rather than her usual portfolio. There's been a development, she said without preamble. Our investigator found something in Vancouver. The property Marcus Male, 58, had mentioned to Daniel Male, 50s, during your hospital stay. I braced myself. Show me. The tablet displayed property records for a waterfront condominium purchased 6 months ago, precisely when my grandfather's health had begun its final decline. The owner, Phoenix Holdings LLC, a shell company registered in Delaware. This is Marcus's, asked, indirectly. Phoenix Holdings traces back to a trust controlled by Derek Mayle, 50's Marcus's cousin, the realtor. The pieces connected instantly. He's been helping launder the money through real estate transactions. Miss Albright nodded. But that's not the most disturbing discovery. She swiped to the next document. A birth certificate dated 9 years earlier. The Vancouver property has another regular occupant. A child's name jumped from the page. Ethan Croft Mayle. 9, with short dark hair. Mother, Margot Croft, deceased. Father, Julian Croft. Now, Julian Croft, Marcus's alias. I whispered, the implications hitting me like a physical blow. Marcus has a son, a 9-year-old son, who has been attending private school in Vancouver. For the past 3 years, according to enrollment records, tuition paid by Phoenix Holdings, my mind Anya's raced through calculations I didn't want to face. 9 years ago, Marcus would have been 49. I'd known him for only 5 years. Married for 3. Does the timeline match any of his previous targets? I managed to ask. Ms. Albright's expression confirmed my suspicion before she spoke. Margot Croft, born Margot Davies, was a client at his former investment firm. Wealthy family. Inherited significant assets at 21. She died in a boating accident 7 years ago. Accident? I questioned, already knowing the answer. Investigation was inconclusive. No charges filed. Her family raised questions but couldn't prove. Anything shortly after, Julian Croft disappeared with their son. Miss Albright hesitated before continuing. According to our investigator, Ethan has been told his father travels for business. He stays with a nanny when Marcus is away. A child. An innocent child caught in Marcus's web of deception. The revelation transformed everything, not just my understanding of Marcus's capacity for betrayal, but the scope of his crimes and callousness. He was never going to Singapore, I realized, or Arizona. The Scottsdale property was another misdirection. We believe so. Actual destination appears to be Vancouver, where he's been methodically transferring assets over the past 6 months. My thoughts turned to the utter abandonment he had shown me during my illness. He abandoned our shared life without a second thought, but has been supporting his son for years. In his own way, Ms. Albright said carefully, the nanny reports, that Marcus visits monthly at most. The relationship appears to be perfunctory, transactional, like everything in Marcus's life. Everything in Marcus's life. Everything parenthood. Beatrice, female, 70s, entered, immediately sensing the atmosphere. What's happened? As Ms. Albright briefed her. Anya struggled to process this new dimension of betrayal. The existence of Ethan didn't just reveal Marcus's longer history of deception, it exposed the calculated nature of his relationship with me. I hadn't been chosen for compatibility or love, but for financial potential. After his previous scheme, we need to modify our approach. Anya female. Lo Shuwu said finally. The criminal case just became more complex. Marcus Mayle, 58, defrauded Margot Croft before her death. It could elevate the investigation to include questions about her accident. Ms. Albright, female, 70s, confirmed, and theirs. Ethan Mayle, 9 to consider, I added. An innocent child who deserves protection. Beatrice, female, 70s, studied the property records thoughtfully. This may actually strengthen our position. Marcus can't disappear completely while maintaining his relationship with his son, a vulnerability in his planning. I agreed. He's created an anchor he can't easily abandon. Ms. Albright made notes on her tablet. I'll update our filing to include this information. I'll contact Canadian authorities regarding potential international fraud charges. As they discussed legal implications, I found myself drawn to the photo of Ethan, included in the school records. Solemn-faced boy with Marcus's distinctive eyes, but none of his practiced charm. A child who'd lost his mother under suspicious circumstances and lived, with Marcus's intermittent presence as his only parental figure. We need to ensure Ethan is protected when this all comes to light, I insisted. Ever Marcus has done, his son shouldn't suffer for it. Of course, Miss Albright assured me. Will request appropriate intervention from family services. The discovery of Marcus's son added moral complexity to our pursuit of justice. No longer was this simply about recovering stolen assets or punishing betrayal. A child's welfare had entered the equation, child who might soon learn devastating truths about his father. There's something else, Beatrice said, reviewing additional files on her tablet. Financial records from Phoenix Holdings show regular payments to a medical facility in Toronto, specialized care for someone named Evelyn Davies, female, 80s, with thin white hair. Another family member? Asked. Margot's mother? Ethan's grandmother. She has advanced Parkinson's disease. Marcus appears to be covering her care costs. This detail didn't align with my understanding of Marcus's character. He's paying for his former mother-in-law's medical treatment. Why would he? Control, Ms. Albright suggested, or perhaps insurance. If Evelyn knows something about her daughter's death, keeping her comfortable ensures her silence, Beatrice finished. The depths of Marcus's manipulation extended further than I'd imagined possible, not just financial fraud or marital betrayal, but potentially something far darker, something that crossed into territory I hadn't wanted to contemplate. We need to move faster than planned. I decided, a new urgency driving me. Marcus isn't just a con man. He's dangerous in ways we're only beginning to understand. Ms. Albright nodded grimly. I'll make the calls now. As she stepped out to initiate our legal proceedings, I reflected on the implications. Justice was no longer just about my betrayal. It had become about protection for myself, for Ethan, and potentially for others I didn't yet know about. The discovery of Ethan and the suspicious circumstances surrounding Margot Croft's death demanded a complete recalibration of our strategy within the hour. Ms. Albright, female, 70s, had assembled a virtual meeting with key allies, a former FBI, financial crime specialist now in private practice, a prosecutor who specialized in cross-border fraud cases, and Clara, female, 60s, with short, curly auburn hair, my friend who had first alerted me to Marcus, male, 58, and Seraphine's female, 48 relationship. Approach I, Anya, female, 65, with silver-streaked dark brown hair, stated, addressing the secure video conference from my position on the study chaise lounge, the financial recovery remains important, but protecting Ethan, male, 9, and establishing the full scope of Marcus's crimes takes precedence. The former FBI agent, Martin Reeves's male, 50s, with short graying hair, nodded his agreement. Based on what you've shared, we're looking at potential charges spanning at least 3 jurisdictions. Financial fraud here, banking violations in Switzerland, and a possible criminal investigation in Canada regarding Margot Croft. Our strongest leverage is speed and surprise, added Sandra Jenkins, female, 40s. With sleek dark hair and a sharp bob, the prosecutor, Marcus believes he has at least several weeks before you're recovered enough to discover his actions. That overconfidence creates an opening. Clara, who had taken a red-eye flight to join us in person, provided crucial context. Marcus's relationship with Seraphina isn't just about this scheme. They've been working together for years. I've been digging through social media archives, and I found photos placing them together as far back as 8 years ago. Always. In the background, always careful, but definitely together. Before Margot's accident, I noted. Long before, Clara confirmed grimly. I took a deep breath, organizing my thoughts. Financial analysis had always been my strength, identifying patterns, developing strategies, calculating optimal approaches. Now I needed to apply those skills to something far more personal and urgent. Here's what we know about Marcus's current position, I began, shifting into my professional analysis mode. He's moving between Scottsdale and Vancouver, establishing financial footholds in both locations, plus foreign accounts. He believes I'm still hospitalized, or at least incapacitated by recovery. Most importantly, he thinks his activities are undetected because he controls our shared digital environment. The surveillance advantage, Reeves commented, which we can leverage, I continued. I propose a 3-phase strategy, operating simultaneously. I outlined my plan, drawing on each team member's expertise. Phase 1 would focus on asset protection and recovery, freezing accounts, filing emergency injunctions, and documenting fraud through official channels. Phase 2 would address the criminal investigation, building cases, methodically while coordinating with authorities in multiple jurisdictions. Phase 3, the most delicate, would involve Ethan and the Vancouver situation. I want to be clear, I emphasized. Whatever happens, Ethan must be protected. He's an innocent child who's already lost his mother. Child protective. Services will need to be involved, Sandra noted, but carefully. We don't want to tip off Marcus before we're ready. We spent the next 2 hours refining the strategy, assigning responsibilities, and establishing secure communication. Protocols. By lunch, each team member had clear objectives and timelines. What about your personal safety? Clara asked as the virtual participants signed off. If Marcus realizes you're building a case against him, the Sterling estate is secure, Beatrice female, 70s assured her. Limited access points, modern security system, remote location, and we have private security personnel on rotating shifts. I appreciated their concern, but my mind had already moved to the next critical decision. We need to establish what? Marcus can see through our digital footprint. What trail should we create to maintain his false sense of security? Ms. Albright nodded approvingly. His direction while we position our resources. Exactly, I turned to Beatrice. We ensure the hospital records show I'm still there, dealing with recovery complications. Ready arranged. According to official records, you're battling a post-surgical infection requiring extended hospitalization. In my regular email and phone, we've set up automated responses and limited activity that suggests you're focused entirely. On medical concerns, she added, considered our position carefully. My financial training had taught me that timing was often the difference between success and catastrophic failure. Move too early with insufficient preparation, and Marcus would simply disappear with whatever assets he'd already secured. Wait too long, and he might harm others, or establish himself beyond our reach. We need a triggering event, I decided. Something that will make Marcus act predictably while revealing his vulnerabilities. Clara leaned forward. What kind of trigger? Money, I said simply. Marcus's primary motivation has always been financial. His actions with Margot, with me, even his limited engagement with Ethan, all fundamentally transactional. Ms. Albright caught my direction immediately. Make him believe there's a significant sum suddenly within reach. Precisely. A portion of the Zurich trust appearing to become accessible due to some administrative development. I turned to Beatrice. Can we create a legitimate-looking notification about a trust distribution that would reach Marcus through channels he monitors? A phantom distribution, Beatrice mused. Yes, we could have the notification sent to your regular email, which we know he's accessing. Make it appear that a significant sum is being prepared for transfer to accounts you control. He won't be able to resist, Clara agreed. It's exactly the opportunity he's been positioning himself for. But we control exactly what he sees and when, I added. We can include specific account information that we're monitoring, creating a trail that leads exactly where we want him to go. As we refined this approach, Anya, felt my analytical mind fully engaging with the challenge. This wasn't just about justice anymore. It was a complex financial and legal chess match where anticipating Marcus's moves allowed us to position our counter moves with precision. What about Seraphina, female, 48? Clara asked. She's equally involved. The same trigger will work for both, I explained. Where Marcus goes, Seraphina follows. Their partnership appears to be both professional and personal. By evening, our strategy had crystallized into a detailed action plan with contingencies. For various scenarios, each team member understood their role in the carefully choreographed sequence that would unfold over the next 72 hours. It won't be simple, Ms. Albright cautioned. Marcus has proven himself adaptable and calculating. Yes, I agreed. But he has weaknesses too. His arrogance. His underestimation of women, and most importantly, his belief that I'm still the trusting, naive person he married. For myself and for Ethan, I would ensure that Marcus faced the consequences of his actions, methodically, legally, and with the precision that had defined my professional life. Tomorrow morning, I decided, we begin. Dawn was breaking as Anya, 65, with silver-streaked dark brown hair. Finalized preparations for Marcus's male, 58 video call with our planted sterling global financial advisor. The irony wasn't lost on me. While he believed he was manipulating my financial team, he would actually be revealing crucial information to my allies. Eliza, female, 40s, with brown hair and a practical ponytail, is here. Beatrice, female, 70s, announced, escorting my former hospital nurse into the study. I looked up in surprise. Liza, I didn't realize you were part of today's operations. Liza smiled, setting down her nursing bag. When Beatrice explained what was happening, I volunteered. That man doesn't deserve to get away with abandoning you. Her presence represented something I hadn't anticipated, the growing circle of support forming around me. What had begun as a small team of professional advisors had organically expanded to include people connected by moral conviction rather than financial or legal obligation. We need someone to monitor your actual medical status during this operation, Beatrice explained. Dr. Sharma recommended Elisa specifically. As Elisa checked my vitals, Clara, female, 60s, with short, curly auburn hair, arrived with breakfast and news. Seraphine's female, 48 credit card was just used to purchase 2 first-class tickets to Vancouver, departure tomorrow morning. They're accelerating their timeline, Anya noted. The Phantom Trust distribution is working. Ms. Albright, female, 70s, joined us via secure video link from her downtown office. The legal team is assembled. Judge Winters has agreed to review our emergency filings today. She has a particular interest in cases involving financial exploitation. Another ally I hadn't expected. A banking consortium is prepared as well, Beatrice added. Representatives from 6 financial institutions have agreed to coordinate their actions precisely as we requested. These institutions, with their rigid protocols and bureaucratic caution, had proven surprisingly responsive when presented with evidence of Marcus's schemes. My grandfather's reputation opened doors, but the merits of our case secured cooperation. By mid-morning, our expanded team included financial forensic specialists, legal experts across 3 jurisdictions, banking security officers, and even a child welfare advocate specializing in cases involving parental financial crimes. Marcus's male 58 video call is scheduled for 11, Beatrice reminded me. Are you certain you don't want to observe? Anya shook my head. No. Better that I focus on coordinating the responses after we see which direction he takes. The call itself went exactly as predicted. Marcus, believing himself to be speaking with a sterling global representative, pressed for details about the trust distribution while presenting himself as my authorized financial manager. He asked specific questions about transfer procedures, verification requirements, and timing each answer carefully crafted to guide him toward our prepared trap. Burton Reeves, male, 50s, with short, graying hair, confirmed after reviewing the recorded call. He's planning to access the distribution through the Swiss account he established using your credentials, which gives us jurisdiction for banking fraud in Switzerland. Sandra Jenkins, female, 40s, with sleek dark hair and a sharp bob, added that's crucial for the international recovery efforts. As noon approached, Clara updated our monitoring of Seraphine's female, 48 activities. She's liquidating personal assets and canceling standing appointments for the next month. Classic preparation for disappearance. And Daniel, male, 50s, I asked. Covering digital tracks, she confirmed. He's deleting accounts, scrubbing browser histories, and establishing new, secure communications channels. Each report confirmed our strategy was working. Marcus, Seraphina, and Daniel believed themselves to be operating undetected, preparing for their final extraction of my supposed wealth. Their activities created a perfect record of consciousness of guilt evidence that would prove crucial in both criminal and civil proceedings. More importantly, their predictable responses revealed their next moves before they made them, allowing our coalition to position countermeasures with precision. Vancouver authorities have been briefed. Regarding Ethan, male, 9, Ms. Albright, female, 70s, reported, Child Protective Services has a team on standby, ready to intervene with appropriate sensitivity. By evening, our coalition had grown from 3 people in my grandfather's study to over 20 professionals across multiple countries, each bringing specialized expertise to our coordinated response. It's remarkable, Clara observed as we reviewed the day's developments, how quickly people rallied to this cause. What she didn't say, what none of them said, was that the coalition had formed around me, Anya female, 65, not just my case. Something in my transformation from victim to strategist had inspired others to contribute their best efforts. As I rested before bed, I reflected on this unexpected development. Marcus had seen me as nothing more than a means to financial gain. In trying to destroy me, he had instead revealed my capacity to build something far stronger than he could imagine. A coalition united by purpose and principle, rather than greed. We found them. Martin Reeves, male, 50s, with short graying hair, announced, entering the study with a tablet displaying a complex financial diagram. All of them. It was early morning, the day before Marcus, male, 58, and Seraphine's female, 48, scheduled flight to Vancouver. Daniel, male, 50s, with short dark hair, was already there, preparing their digital infrastructure. Their confidence remained absolute. Now, not a single precautionary measure suggested they suspected our awareness of their plans. Position, Martin confirmed, coordinating from a makeshift command center in grandfather's dining room. Financial institutions standing by, law enforcement briefed in 3 jurisdictions. Child Protective Services ready in Vancouver. Anya, female, 65, with silver-streaked dark brown hair, nodded. Calm. Despite the enormity of what we were about to unleash. Commence Phase 1, I instructed. With those words, the first coordinated actions deployed across 3 countries. Simultaneously, in Switzerland, banking authorities froze the accounts Marcus had established using forged sterling global credentials, triggering automatic notifications to his phone. In Bermuda, financial regulators placed a hold on the trust containing the accumulated proceeds from his years of fraud, citing international money laundering concerns. In the Cayman Islands, similar actions locked down the shell company's heed, established to funnel funds internationally. Domestically, the injunction against our condo sale was formally filed and recorded, with copies delivered to both Marcus's cousin Derek, male, 50s, and the real estate firm. Phase 1 complete, Beatrice, female, 70s, reported, monitoring the cascade of digital confirmations. All financial channels secured. Marcus's response came within minutes, a flurry of calls to financial institutions each met with. The same response, accounts frozen pending investigation of potential fraud. He's panicking. Clara, female, 60s, observed, tracking his phone activity. 5 calls in 3 minutes.
For Phase 2, Anya, is it checking?
The time, Ms. Albright, female, 70s, nodded and initiated the second wave of our response. Criminal complaints were simultaneously filed in 3 jurisdictions, triggering formal investigations with Marcus, Seraphina, and Daniel named as persons of interest. The evidence packages we'd prepared were delivered to federal authorities, complete with financial records, witness statements from previous victims, and documentation of current activities. Most crucially, an Interpol financial crimes alert was activated, flagging their passports and identities, both real and aliases, in international travel systems. Law enforcement is moving to their location now, Martin reported, listening to updates through his earpiece. They should intercept before departure. As these external actions unfolded, I, Anya, female, 65, executed our personal counterstrike from a secure laptop. I sent Marcus a single message to the email account he thought I couldn't access. Marcus, while you were planning your escape with Seraphina, I was planning your accountability. By now you've discovered your accounts are frozen and authorities are approaching. This isn't just about what you took from me. It's about Margot Croft and all the others whose lives you've damaged. The sterling fortune you coveted is now funding your prosecution. Every fake identity, every shell company, every transaction has been documented and shared with authorities. As for Ethan, male, 9. He deserves better than a father who uses him as part of a cover story. I attached a single photo of me. Anya, female, 65, with silver-streaked dark brown hair styled in a sophisticated bob, fully recovered, sitting in My grandfather's study with all the evidence surrounding me. Message delivered, I confirmed. Let's see how he responds. We didn't have to wait long. Security cameras at their hotel captured Marcus male, 58, and Seraphina's female, 48, frantic exodus to the parking garage, luggage abandoned in their suite. They had chosen flight over confrontation, exactly as we'd predicted. Heading south on Interstate 10, Martin reported, tracking their phone signals. Law enforcement has been updated. Within 20 minutes, the situation resolved exactly as our strategy had anticipated. Marcus and Seraphina, attempting to flee towards the U.S. border, were intercepted at a highway checkpoint specifically reinforced for our operation. Their arrest initially for financial crimes would soon expand to include additional charges as evidence continued flowing to prosecutors. In Vancouver, Child Protective Services arrived at Ethan's male, 9 school with appropriate support. Resources. The boy would be temporarily placed with his maternal aunt, Margot's sister, who had been searching for him since her sister's death. Daniel Male, 50s, attempting to delete evidence from a Vancouver hotel room, found himself interrupted by Canadian authorities with a search warrant for electronic devices related to international fraud. It's done. It's Ms. Albright, female. 70s said quietly as the confirmation streamed in. All primary targets in custody. The machinery of justice, once engaged, continued its inexorable progress across 3 countries. Evidence was being secured, charges formalized, and legal proceedings initiated. The financial architecture Marcus had constructed over years was being systematically dismantled with assets frozen pending formal forfeiture. Anya, female, 65, felt no triumph, only a profound sense of closure. The man who had seen me as nothing but a financial resource had been undone by the very strengths he'd dismissed. My analytical mind, my professional network, and the legacy of integrity my grandfather had built. The other victims have been notified, Clara, female, 60s, reported. They all expressed, well, gratitude doesn't quite capture it. Justice, I suggested. They've received justice. As the command center began to wind down operations, I reflected. On the morning's events, I had protected myself, and I had honored my grandfather's faith in me. I had transformed violation into vindication, not just for myself, but for all those whose trust Marcus had betrayed. 3 weeks after Marcus's male, 58 arrest, I, Anya, female, 65, with silver-streaked dark brown hair and an elegant bun, sat in a federal courthouse conference room, preparing to give my official statement to prosecutors. Despite making remarkable progress in my recovery, I still moved carefully. The physical reminders of my illness lingering even as the emotional wounds began to heal. Ms. Albright, female, 70s, sat beside me, reviewing documents while we waited for the federal prosecutor to arrive. The evidence is overwhelming, she noted. Their legal teams have already approached us about potential plea agreements. All 3 of them, I asked. Daniel Male, 50s, turned first, offering evidence against Marcus and Seraphina, female, 48, in exchange for reduced charges. Then Seraphina began negotiating, claiming Marcus was the mastermind. Ms. Albright's expression held professional. Detachment mixed with personal satisfaction, they've turned on each other exactly as we predicted. The prosecutor, a formidable woman named Rebecca Winters, female, 40s, with sleek dark hair and a sharp bob, entered with a stack of files. Ms. Sharma? Or do you prefer Ms. Sterling now? Anya is fine, I replied, having not yet decided about returning to my maiden name. Well, Anya, I wanted to update you before taking your formal statement. The case has expanded significantly. She laid out photographs of evidence seized from Marcus's various properties, financial records dating back 12 years, notes on potential targets, including detailed financial assessments, and most disturbing, documentation relating to Margot Croft's boating accident. My breath caught. He was responsible? We've reopened the investigation. The evidence is circumstantial but compelling. Insurance policies, timing of financial transfers, technical issues with the boat that appeared deliberate rather than accidental. The implications settled heavily in the room. Marcus hadn't just been a con man, might be implicated in manslaughter or worse. What about Ethan Male, 9? I asked. Rebecca's expression softened slightly. He's adjusting well with his aunt. The judge granted temporary custody yesterday, with supervised visitation for his grandmother, Evelyn Davies, female, 80s, with thin white hair, once she's well enough to travel. And the financial recovery? That's actually our best news, she acknowledged. The Bermuda Trust has been fully frozen, with forfeiture proceedings initiated. The court has authorized an unusual arrangement, a restitution fund, for all identified victims with proportional distribution based on documented losses, Ms. Albright added, which means you and the other women will likely recover substantial portions of what was taken, not immediately, but eventually. The process would be lengthy. International financial recovery always was. But the machinery of legal consequences was now fully engaged. Marcus, Seraphina, and Daniel faced indictments in multiple jurisdictions, with charges ranging from wire fraud to money laundering to potential involvement in Margot's death, as I, Anya female, 65, provided my formal statement that afternoon. Detailing the events from my first meeting with Seraphina through Marcus's arrest, I felt an unexpected sense of detachment. The woman in that story, the one who had trusted so completely, who had missed the warning signs, who had awakened in a hospital to discover betrayal, seemed like someone I had once known rather than myself. The preliminary hearing a week later brought my first direct confrontation with Marcus Male, 58, since his arrest. Entering the courtroom, I, Anya, female, 65, with silver-streaked dark brown hair, felt a momentary flutter of anxiety, but it dissipated when I actually saw him. In jail attire, without his carefully crafted charm and confidence, he appeared. Smaller, somehow diminished. His eyes found mine as I took my seat, expecting to see anger or defiance. Instead, I recognized something entirely different. Calculation. Even now, facing serious charges and overwhelming evidence, he was assessing angles, looking for leverage, measuring what he might extract from the situation. When he attempted to approach me during a recess, security intervened immediately. "Anya," he called, his voice holding that familiar, persuasive tone. "There's been a terrible misunderstanding. If we could just talk privately." I met his gaze calmly. "There's no misunderstanding, Marcus. There's only accountability." The judge granted all the prosecution's motions, denying bail due to flight risk and setting a trial date 6 months out.
All three defendants.
Marcus Male, 58, Seraphina female, 48, and Daniel Male, 50s, would remain in custody. Their assets frozen, their freedom curtailed by the same legal system they had manipulated for years. As Anya left the courthouse, reporters called questions about the Black Widow investment scheme, the media's name for Marcus and Seraphine's operation. I declined comment but couldn't help noticing the poetic justice. The man who had defined me as nothing but a financial resource was now defined by his financial crimes, his name becoming synonymous with betrayal and fraud. The consequences he had never anticipated when emptying our savings account while I recovered had manifested fully not as revenge, but as the natural conclusion to choices made with arrogance and callousness. Justice, I realized, had its own elegant mathematics, a balancing of equations that Marcus, for all his financial scheming, had failed to calculate correctly. 2 months after Marcus's Male, 58 arrest, I, Anya female, 65, with silver-streaked dark brown hair styled in an elegant bob, sat in my grandfather's now my office, reviewing correspondence that had arrived following the first news reports about the case. Eliza, female, 40s, with brown hair and a practical ponytail, napped nearby in a comfortable chair. Clara, female, 60s, with short curly auburn hair, entered with a tray of tea and more letters. "These came this morning, same as the others." I nodded, having expected this since the story broke. Women had been coming forward. It's not just Marcus's previous victims, but others who recognized the pattern from their own experiences with different perpetrators. Each letter shared a similar story: romance, financial integration, betrayal during vulnerability. "There are 17 new ones," Clara noted. "That's 43 in total." then those are just the ones who felt comfortable writing to a stranger. I observed how the media had initially focused on the sensational aspects of the Black Widow investment scheme. The arrests, the multiple identities. But as the fuller story emerged, something unexpected happened. Women's financial publications began covering the case from a different angle, highlighting how financial exploitation often targeted women during major life transitions: marriage, illness, bereavement. My inbox filled with interview requests from financial advisors, women's advocacy groups, and wellness publications. The story had touched a nerve, revealing a type of vulnerability many women recognized but few had named. Beatrice, female, 70s, with pristine white hair in a neat bun, knocked and entered with a visitor. Rebecca Matthews, female, 50s, with short gray hair, financial crime specialist with the FBI. "Thanks for seeing me outside official channels," Rebecca said after introductions. "What began with your case has expanded significantly." She explained that the evidence seized from Marcus Seraphina, female, 48, and Daniel, male, 50s, had opened investigations into similar operations across 3 states. Financial predators targeting women during vulnerable transitions appeared to be a more organized phenomenon than previously recognized. "Your case created a template," Rebecca explained. "The documentation, the financial tracking, the coordination across jurisdictions, it's becoming a model for pursuing these crimes." After she left, Ms. Albright, female, 70s, arrived with updates on the legal proceedings. Marcus has rejected all plea offers, maintaining his innocence despite overwhelming evidence. Seraphina and Daniel, however, have both accepted agreements in exchange for testimony. The prosecutor expects Marcus's trial to begin in approximately 4 months, Ms. Albright concluded. "They've prioritized the case given the public interest." That public interest had created unexpected ripple effects in financial and legal communities. Several banks had contacted Sterling Global about implementing similar security protocols to those that had flagged Marcus's fraudulent activities. Law enforcement agencies had developed specialized training on financial exploitation in intimate relationships. Most surprising were the personal reactions. Neighbors who had known us as a couple sent supportive messages, often sharing their own observations of Marcus's inconsistencies they'd noticed but never mentioned. Former colleagues offered assistance with rebuilding my professional network. Even Marcus's family reached out. His sister, Diana, female, 50s, with straight brown hair, who had been estranged from him for years, contacted me through Ms. Albright. She suspected something wasn't right with his lifestyle, Ms. Albright explained. Says he exhibited similar patterns in his teen years: charm, manipulation, living beyond apparent means. Diana had valuable context to offer. Investigators about Marcus's background and previous identities they hadn't yet discovered. Her cooperation strengthened the case further. The most meaningful ripple effect, however, came in an unexpected form. Margot Croft's sister, Jenny, female, 40s, with soft, shoulder-length blonde hair, caring for Ethan, male, 9, reached out through our legal team. After careful consideration and consultation with Ethan's therapist, she requested a meeting. She thinks it might help Ethan to know there are others who understand what it means to be deceived by Marcus, Clara explained, having spoken with Jenny directly. "Not immediately, but perhaps when he's ready. She believes connecting with you might help him feel less isolated in his experience." The thought of meeting my stepson, another innocent affected by Marcus's schemes, filled me, Anya, with complex emotions, protective instinct, compassion for a boy who had lost his mother and now was losing his understanding of his father, and a sense of responsibility that extended beyond my immediate situation. These expanding circles of impact continued outward from what had begun as my personal betrayal. Each ripple connected to others who had experienced similar harm. 2 professionals working to prevent future exploitation, 2 families rebuilding after deception. What Marcus had intended as an isolated extraction of wealth had instead created a network of awareness, support, and prevention that would long outlast whatever sentence he ultimately received. That evening, in the quiet of the estate, Anya reflected on these unexpected consequences. Marcus had believed he was writing the end of our story when he emptied our accounts. Instead, he had inadvertently created the beginning of something much larger, reassessment of how financial vulnerability intersects with life transitions, particularly for women. His betrayal, meant to diminish me, had instead expanded my understanding of purpose in ways neither of us could have anticipated. 1 year after my hospital discharge, Anya, female 66, with silver-streaked dark brown hair, styled and soft. Elegant waves stood at the podium addressing a conference of financial advisors, estate planners, and family law attorneys. My health was fully restored, my mind sharper than ever. Financial vulnerability often coincides with life's most significant transitions, I explained to the attentive audience. Marriage, extended illness, bereavement, moments when we are focused on emotional needs rather than financial vigilance. My presentation outlined the patterns we had identified through analyzing dozens of cases similar to mine. The warning signs, the protective measures, the resources available to those who suspected exploitation. The response had been overwhelming. Professionals were eager to better serve clients during vulnerable periods. After the Marcus Sharma Male, 58 case made headlines, I, Anya, had found myself unexpectedly positioned at the intersection of financial expertise and personal experience. Initially reluctant to step into a public role, I gradually recognized the unique perspective I could offer. What began as occasional speaking engagements evolved into sterling protection strategies, a consultancy focused on financial security during life transitions. Working with a small team of dedicated professionals, we developed protocols for financial institutions, educational materials for healthcare providers who worked with recovering patients and the elderly, and direct services for those recovering from financial exploitation. Marcus's trial had concluded 3 months earlier. Despite his continued denials, the evidence proved insurmountable. His sentence, 22 years for financial crimes, with additional charges related to Margot Croft's death still pending, ensured he would no longer threaten vulnerable women. Seraphina, female, 48, and Daniel, male, 50s, received reduced sentences in exchange for their testimony, though still substantial given their roles in the scheme. The restitution fund had begun distributing recovered assets to victims, with my portion directed to a foundation supporting children affected by financial crimes. I knew I would never want for anything. The Sterling Trust ensured that. But I wanted others to have the chance to rebuild their lives. My most meaningful work, however, came through regular meetings with Ethan, male 10, and his Aunt Jenny, female 40s. Initially cautious, we had gradually built a relationship that acknowledged our complicated connection while focusing on Ethan's well-being. At 10, Ethan was thoughtful beyond his years, processing complex truths about his father with remarkable resilience. Connecting with him became a source of unexpected joy. He was an innocent, caught in a web not of his making, and my heart went out to him. As I, Anya, female 66, concluded my presentation and answered questions from the audience, I reflected on the journey from that hospital bed a year earlier. The woman who had awakened to discover her husband's betrayal while recovering from illness had undergone a profound metamorphosis. The transformation wasn't about financial recovery, professional reinvention, or even justice served, though all had occurred. It was about reclaiming the narrative, about refusing to be defined by victimization, about creating meaning from betrayal. Marcus had seen me as nothing but a means to financial gain. In attempting to reduce me to a transaction, he had instead catalyzed my evolution into someone stronger, more purposeful, and more impactful than I might otherwise have become. His greatest miscalculation hadn't been underestimating my financial acumen or my family resources. It had been failing to recognize that in targeting me during what he perceived as my moment of greatest vulnerability, he had inadvertently triggered my most profound strength. While I was recovering in Toronto, my husband drained our savings, but he never expected my backup account in Zurich. More importantly, he never realized that true wealth lies not in accounts or assets, but in resilience, purpose, and the legacy we create through how we transform our challenges.